I did porn, and I have a porn name as well, which was Steve Trevor, which was is also the name of Wonder Woman's boyfriend. I remember being hit on by both a man and a woman, and at that point, I knew that I had. Looking back on it, it was terrible, terrible sex. And neither of us really knew what we were doing, but something was compelling. I think of myself as sort of a traveler, or someone who dabbles in a lot, likes to stick his nose and other appendages into various different subcultures without necessarily identifying. I lived with squat punks, but I was never really a punk. I've hung out with anti-racist skinhead groups, but never was a skinhead. I've hung out with hippies, but was never a hippie. I felt very alienated from mainstream gay male culture. I was coming out of a punk rock background, and I didn't like Cher or Madonna or Cologne or any of the things that were sort of supposed to be gay, except for cocksucking. I saw a group of gay men who I had something in common with besides just a love of dick. And that changed my life. Bareness has now become its own aesthetic, not just in opposition to something, but rather developed its own sort of look, its own communities, its own publications, its own sort of artwork. Just recently, I was able to change my scruff profile to some hair, and it felt like it felt like a coming of age. It was a major moment for me. I've grown into it. I figured, I get a chest hair a year, and by the time I'm 250, I'll be a real bear. But I'm getting there. The first time I went to Lazy Bear Weekend, I was sort of invisible, and now I'm not invisible there. I love living in a city that celebrates and has such a vibrant bear community, because I go to those bars, I go to those parties. I make the art that sort of speaks to this subculture. It's important to me to have access to this community, even if I don't participate in more fully developed ways. I've tried pretty much everything you can imagine, but I'm sort of wary about thinking of myself self-identifying completely as a Leatherman, because that seems like an extra level of sort of identification that would feel a little bit false to me. My artwork is very much, in my storytelling, is very much interested in the history and sort of cultural parameters of things like the leather and bear communities, because I think it's so important to San Francisco, to my sense of myself as a queer man, as a gay man. I hated anything that was thrust upon me as something I needed to do because I was a boy, right? I absolutely hated the sort of masculine tropes. The first Halloween costume I ever made was half man, half woman. I wanted to sort of be neutral. And I thought both categories were bullshit. I figured out the things that I could play with and find joy in with masculinity, and then take all the toxic shit and throw that to the side. Masculinity should be joyful. And so often it's painted as something else. It's painted as competitive or violent, or, I don't want to sublimate my sense of masculinity into violence. I'm going to sublimate it into sex, into like joyful, wonderful orgasms with other men. Bears can be sweaty and hairy and all this stuff, and they can also cry when they need to. Because why the fuck not? What are we doing if we can't cry when we need to? And we can't be soft when we need to be, and we can't be hard when we need to be, in all the fun ways. Genderqueer, it's a graphic memoir about our journey as a non-binary person, and it is now the most banned book in America. I've always thought of myself as having sort of a precocious gay childhood, but a weirdo gay boy childhood. But maybe I was non-binary.
We're expanding the definitions.
A lot of these great artists have been sort of swept under the rug a little bit, and they need to be, people need to shine a spotlight on the work that they did, which was so seminal. Without our artists, I don't think we would have the sort of community and cultural identities that we have. I walked into Hole in the Wall Bar not knowing exactly what it was. I had heard about it, and as a sort of rumors about it as a place that I might actually feel comfortable going into, because I felt very alienated by the bars. I don't drink alcohol. Every time they would do a shot, the bartender would ring the bell, ding, 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 ding. This is cowbell, and everyone would take their shot glasses, go bang, 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 bang. It was loud. It was like unruly. It was punk rock. I was just watching these like, these sexy oil-covered hairy men grappling with each other and grabbing their leather pants from each other. Christoph was Mr. Rubber, but he was also a high-level German physicist who was actually hired to go over Einstein's notes. There was one naked guy who looked like Sammy Hagar, and he would, with this like frizzed out hair that was all split ends, and he would walk around naked with this an enormous champagne glass made out of plastic. It was wild. And I didn't know that those two things could live on top of each other, that you could actually be artistic and also want to be thick and muscular.
We threw in $20 each and got the money together. And then we had a beer bust at Hole in the Wall, and we sold every fucking t-shirt. We raised $150,000 some years. Masculinity is kindness.
Yes.
You'd come up and give somebody a belly rub. You'd touch their stomach. It was kind of a greeting, and it was this friendly vibe. And anybody that identified as wanted to be a bear just said they were a bear. I kind of knew we were in trouble when there was a flag. When there was a bear flag, I kind of went, okay, we're done.
We're supposed to be the group they sort of everybody else can fall into. To show their own flag. That's fascinating.
Be sure to consider saving all of your artwork and your records and all of the stuff that you do, and the Gay Historical Society of San Francisco would be an ideal place for it to eventually end up.
Self-interest is a perfectly viable.
It's nice to talk about it, but the truth is we created it because we wanted it.